I lied about my job for 2 years because I was ashamed. She had no idea, and with each passing day, my lies could hurt her even more. I never thought I'd end up writing something like this, but I honestly don't know where else to put these feelings. For 2 years, I've been in a relationship with the woman I genuinely believe is the love of my life. We knew each other when we were younger, lost touch for years, then reconnected, and everything just clicked that she's smart, beautiful, and carries herself with this confidence that makes me feel both proud and insecure. She works in a professional field, has her life together, and I guess I wanted her to see me the same way. Here's the problem. I lied about my job. She thinks I work in a boring office role, something unremarkable but respectable enough. The truth is, I work in cleaning. Not the regular janitor kind that people picture, but high-end cleaning jobs where I deal with literally any mess. Sometimes disgusting, sometimes dangerous, always demanding. It pays surprisingly well, but it's not the kind of job people brag about, and that's why I hid it. I was terrified that if she knew the truth, she'd see me as less ambitious, less successful, less of a man. The irony is, I'm actually good at it. I'm fast, I make solid money. I even dream about starting my own company one day. But instead of being proud of that, I buried it under a lie. Now the guilt eats at me every single day. Every time she casually asks about my office work, every time her friends joke about boring 9 to 5 jobs, I feel like a fraud. I love her, but I know this secret could blow up everything. And the worst part? I did it to myself. We had known each other when we were kids, playing in the same courtyard, sharing cheap ice cream, and laughing at jokes that only made sense to us back then. Those memories were fleeting, faded like old photographs tucked in a drawer. But when we reconnected as adults, it was like the years hadn't passed at all. That same spark, that same easy laughter, only now laced with depth and understanding. She had grown into this incredible woman, confident, self-assured, someone whose presence filled the room without trying. On the other hand, I had spent years chasing stability, status, the kind of life that felt respectable. I thought she deserved someone more polished, someone who didn't have a weird, gross, secret job that I was too embarrassed to admit. I remember the first time I lied to her about work. She casually asked what I did, and instead of explaining the truth, that I was making good money cleaning places most people wouldn't even step foot in, I said, I work in an office. Boring admin stuff. The words felt safe when I said them, but as soon as they left my mouth, they felt heavy, like a weight pressing down on my chest. I could see her eyes light up with that little smile, her curiosity, and I felt a pang of guilt. Every laugh, every casual comment, reminded me of the lie lurking in the background that I would catch myself watching her closely, trying to read her thoughts. Was she seeing through me? Did she notice the little inconsistencies? Her gestures, the way she tilted her head when asking about my work, the way she would mention colleagues I didn't have. It was almost cruel in its innocence. And I couldn't stop overthinking that I would lie awake at night, imagining her finding out, imagining the disappointment in her eyes. Would she still love me if she knew? I'd ask myself. Or would everything we built collapse because of a stupid lie? Even when we were together, just sitting on the couch, watching a show, I felt this constant tension under my skin. The smell of the coffee she made in the morning, the softness of the blanket we shared, even the faint hum of traffic outside. All these little things became reminders that I was hiding something massive from the one person I cared about more than anything. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to tell her. Part of me wanted to protect her from the grossness of my job. The other part just didn't want to feel small in her eyes. Every day I told myself, tomorrow, I'll find a way. I'll figure out how to tell her. But tomorrow never came. But I had convinced myself that if I could just prove my worth in other ways, paying for little dinners, surprising her with small gifts, being emotionally present, maybe the truth wouldn't matter as much. But deep down, I knew it was a ticking bomb. One slip, one accidental mention, and everything could unravel, and I hated myself for it. I hated that I was living a double life, that the person I trusted most might one day feel betrayed by the very thing I thought would protect our love. I know I'm an idiot for thinking this way. I know honesty is everything. But right now, all I can do is hold on to the lie and hope she never finds out, because losing her would be worse than any embarrassment I could ever feel. Working in cleaning was different. Not the kind where you just sweep and mop. This was the high-end, everything must be perfect type. I cleaned offices, apartments, even houses where people had thrown up or left literal piles of garbage. It sounds disgusting, and honestly, some days it was. But I got good at it. Fast, efficient, almost surgical in my approach that I'd scrub corners until they gleamed, sanitize surfaces that hadn't seen a disinfectant in months, organize things people didn't even notice were out of place. And the clients? Most were wealthy, entitled, completely oblivious to the effort it took. I'd leave each job smelling faintly of lemon cleaner and bleach, my hands raw, my uniform stiff with sweat. And still, the money was better than anything I could have gotten in a normal office role starting out. But here's the kicker. I was mortified that she'd know. I'd think about how she might imagine me in this role, a guy handling other people's mess, literally, and my chest would tighten. She'll think I'm pathetic, I told myself. She'll leave if she ever sees the truth. Sometimes I even rehearsed in my head how to explain it. It's not like regular cleaning. I handle extreme cases, it's like a specialized job, but it never sounded good enough. The shame of admitting that I actually enjoyed the skill and precision, that I could do it fast, that it was financially smart. All of that clashed with my fear of being seen as less in her eyes. The worst part was her friends. She would casually talk about office life, promotions, meetings, team lunches, and I'd nod, trying not to panic. I could feel the lie tightening around me, like a noose I'd made myself. And every time she laughed at a story about a coworker, every time she mentioned someone's office drama, it felt like a reminder that I was the fraud in her perfect picture. I hated that I loved her so much that I'd lie just to keep the illusion alive. Every shift, every swipe of a sponge, every odor I masked with perfume and disinfectant was a step deeper into this double life. Yet at the same time, I felt a tiny spark of pride. I was good at what I did, faster than anyone else, efficient, resourceful. I could survive. I could even thrive. But could I survive the fallout if she ever found out? I'd come home, exhausted, and sit across from her at the dinner table, pretending my day was mundane, while inside I was spinning, thinking, I love her too much to ruin this, but how long can I keep it up? And every time I caught her gaze, warm and trusting, I hated myself a little more for being the idiot who thought hiding the truth was protecting anything. It wasn't just about her knowing. It was everyone else too. Her friends, the people we hung out with on weekends, all assuming I was some regular office guy. Every casual dinner, every night out, was like walking a tightrope. One wrong comment, one slip of the tongue, and the whole illusion could crumble. I found myself overthinking constantly. Did I answer that right? Did I sound believable? Should I invent a coworker or a project? I even started carrying little mental notes in my head. Tell them about the report I worked on last week. Mention a meeting at 3 p.m. just to sound like someone who had a normal office life. The more I lied, the more exhausting it became. Her friends adored her, and in their eyes, I needed to look the part too. I remember one evening, sitting at a small rooftop party, her friend Jenna casually asked, "So what's life like at your office?" My stomach sank. I forced a chuckle. "Oh, typical desk stuff. Emails, reports, coffee breaks." All the while my brain screaming, she'll never forgive this if she knew the truth. The truth was so mundane, yet so intense at the same time. I scrubbed floors that hadn't seen a mop in months, dealt with messes that would make most people gag, and yet somehow made it efficient and profitable. I even started dreaming about starting my own cleaning company. But how could I ever tell her? How could I admit I liked doing it, that I was good at it, and that hiding it was purely out of fear? At home, the tension never let up. I'd sit beside her on the couch, laughing at some silly Netflix show, but my mind was elsewhere, imagining how long I could keep up this charade, what stories I needed to maintain, what lies I had to remember. Every touch, every glance from her was a reminder that I was betraying her trust in the smallest but most profound way possible. And sometimes, just sometimes, I'd catch her watching me, curious, like she knew something wasn't quite right. That terrified me more than anything. I'd force myself to smile. Everything's fine. But inside, I was counting the minutes. Until I could either come clean or find another excuse. It was exhausting, emotionally draining, and painfully lonely. Lying to someone you love more than anything in the world. I kept thinking, I'm an idiot. I'm about to ruin everything I care about for fear of being myself. It started with small things. A faint smell of cleaning chemicals lingering on my jacket after a long day, a stubborn stain on my shoes. I couldn't hide, or the way my hands sometimes smelled faintly of bleach no matter how much soap I used. She noticed. Not immediately, but little things added up. One evening, she asked casually, "You smell like something different today. Did you try a new cologne?" I froze. Yeah, new cologne. I mumbled, praying it sounded believable. She tilted her head, a soft smile playing at her lips, but there was curiosity in her eyes. That curiosity was the kind that could unravel everything. Even when I tried to be careful, her questions would get close. "Do you ever travel for work? Or do you work late sometimes?" I had rehearsed answers 100 times, but each one felt like walking on thin ice. I started panicking over tiny details, where I left a uniform, whether my phone showed any unusual notifications, whether a client called me during the day. At night, lying in bed beside her, I'd stare at the ceiling, thinking, one mistake, one slip, and it's over. I can't lose her, not over this. Her breathing beside me was soft and steady, and I felt both warmth and crushing guilt at the same time. I loved her so much, and yet I was betraying her trust without a single physical act of wrongdoing. Sometimes I imagined what would happen if she found out. Would she laugh? Cry? Storm out? The scenarios twisted and multiplied in my mind, and I hated myself for being so cowardly. I told myself I was protecting her, but in reality, I was just protecting my ego, my pride, my fear of being seen as less than. And still, I kept doing the work, kept keeping up the lie. Every day it became heavier, like a weight in my chest that no coffee, no dinner, no laughter could lift. I started questioning myself constantly. Am I really in love with her, or just in love with this perfect version of me that I've invented for her? The tension was unbearable, and the tiniest thing could tip it all over. Every smell, every bruise on my hands, every story that didn't quite add up was a potential landmine. And deep down, I knew, sooner or later, she would find out. It happened on a weekend when she invited me to a small gathering at her apartment. Just a few friends, casual drinks, laughter floating through the air. I thought I could handle it. I had rehearsed everything in my head, the little stories about my office work, the mundane anecdotes, the laughs, the nods. But then Jenna, one of her closest friends, made an offhand comment that made my stomach drop. "Oh, I didn't realize you actually get your hands dirty at work sometimes. Opie, isn't that wild?" My heart skipped. I forced a laugh. "Yeah, I guess you could say that," hoping it sounded casual. But the way she said it, with that sly, teasing grin, made me feel exposed, like someone had just lifted a veil. She tilted her head, curiosity sharp in her gaze. "Wait, what do you mean?" And I froze. I could feel her attention, the warmth in her eyes, but also the growing suspicion. I could almost hear the voice in my head screaming, "Don't ruin this. Don't let her find out. Not now." Every instinct told me to deflect, to laugh it off, to change the subject. Just a weird project at the office. You know how it is," I said, trying to sound lighthearted. But I felt the truth crawling up my throat, itching to spill, and I hated myself for keeping it in. After the evening, driving her home, I couldn't focus on the road. The weight of the lie pressed on me like lead. I stole glances at her, noticing her little smile, the way her hair caught the light, the faint scent of her perfume. I loved her so much, and yet this lie, this stupid, unnecessary lie, was driving a wedge between us even before she knew the truth. That I spent the rest of the night replaying every moment in my head. Why am I like this? Why can't I just be honest? I whispered to myself, staring at the ceiling, my hands shaking. Every laugh from that evening, every casual remark, every curious look from her friends became a reminder that my carefully constructed world was teetering on the edge. And in that quiet, sleepless night, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I couldn't keep hiding forever. Sooner or later, it would all come crashing down. The next few weeks were torture. Every day I woke up with a knot in my stomach, dreading even the smallest question about work. Her friends, completely unaware of the truth, kept joking about office life, promotions, team lunches, and I had to respond with practiced enthusiasm. nodding and smiling while my insides twisted. Point one evening, we were at her apartment again, and she casually mentioned a friend from work. She wanted me to meet next week. I felt my heart drop to my shoes. Friend from work? I whispered in my mind. How am I supposed to have a friend from an office I don't even go to? I laughed nervously, trying to mask the panic. Sure, sounds fun, I said, and she gave me that little knowing smile that made me want to vanish. I spent hours that night planning, thinking, imagining excuses. I could say it's an online project, maybe a client meeting. Yeah, that could work, but nothing felt safe. Every lie required another lie, and the web I had woven was suffocating me. At home, when we were alone, I tried to focus on her, on the warmth of her hand in mine, the gentle rhythm of her breathing, the laugh she gave at some silly comment I made. I wanted to be present, truly present, but my mind kept spiraling. How long can I keep this up? What if she finds out herself? And then came the small moments, subtle clues she picked up, faintly questioning looks, little pauses. In conversation, when she noticed inconsistencies, I could see it in her eyes, that subtle curiosity, that instinct for truth that was sharper than anything I had anticipated. That I realized with crushing clarity. I couldn't control this forever. My secret wasn't just a small lie anymore. It was a chasm growing between us, a silent threat to everything I loved. And the worst part? I knew it was entirely my fault. That it was one of those quiet evenings when everything feels deceptively normal. We were cooking together, the smell of garlic and onions filling the kitchen, soft music humming in the background. I tried to focus on the moment, on her laugh, the way she hummed along with the song, the warmth of the steam from the pan, but my mind kept spinning back to work, the lie, the inevitable discovery. Every small detail of my life felt like a trap. Her glance lingered on my hands, a faint callus from scrubbing, the slight dryness from cleaning chemicals. I could see her curiosity flicker, subtle but unmistakable. I felt my pulse quicken. She's going to figure it out, I thought. And when she does, it's over. I tried to distract myself with conversation, talking about a show we both liked, but her questions started threading too close to the truth. Have you ever done any weird side jobs before? She asked innocently. My stomach lurched. I stammered. Nothing really, just normal stuff, hoping it sounded casual. But inside, panic was clawing at me. That I realized something terrifying. The lie had grown beyond control. I could feel it pressing down like a storm cloud, heavy, inescapable. Every laugh, every smile I shared with her now carried the weight of potential betrayal. And worst of all, I couldn't shake the feeling that she might already sense something, a subtle misalignment between my words and my demeanor. Later that night, lying in bed beside her, I stared at the ceiling, hands tangled in the sheets. I'm an idiot, I whispered to myself. I've built this life on a lie, and I love her too much to ruin it. But what choice do I have now? The thought of losing her, of her discovering the truth on her own, made my chest tighten like it might collapse. And yet, there was a stubborn part of me that clung to hope. That maybe, somehow, she would understand. That maybe love could survive this if I was careful enough, clever enough, brave enough to face the consequences when the time came. It happened unexpectedly one afternoon. I was helping a client with a particularly messy apartment, food scraps, grime, the kind of place most people wouldn't step foot in without gagging. I was in the zone, scrubbing, sanitizing, moving fast. My phone buzzed constantly, and I ignored it, focused on the task. But then I looked down and realized a message from her was blinking insistently. Hey, can we talk tonight? Something's been on my mind. My stomach twisted into knots. She found out. I thought instantly, heart pounding. My mind raced through every possible scenario. Maybe she had noticed the smell on my jacket. Maybe someone accidentally spilled the truth. Maybe she'd pieced it together herself. I tried to calm myself, to remind myself that it could be anything, but the panic was relentless. I kept imagining her disappointed eyes, the hurt, the anger, the inevitable end of everything I loved. I'm going to ruin us, I whispered, scrubbing the counter harder than necessary. That night, I sat across from her at the dinner table, the weight of my secret pressing down like a physical force. She looked at me, calm, but with that slight curiosity in her gaze that made my palms sweat. I feel like there's something you're not telling me, she said softly. And just like that, the walls I'd built around my secret started to tremble. I laughed nervously, trying to sound casual. Nothing at all. Really, just normal stuff. But my heart knew otherwise. Every fiber of my being screamed that I couldn't keep this up much longer. I realized I had reached the point where avoidance was no longer an option. Lying there, watching her stir her tea, the quiet tension between us felt heavier than anything I'd experienced at work. I loved her too much, but the truth was out. There, hovering in the air, and eventually, it would have to be faced. The next few days were a mental battlefield. I couldn't eat properly, sleep properly, even focus at work. Every time my phone buzzed, I flinched. Every time she smiled at me, a pang of guilt twisted my chest. How did I let it get this far? I kept asking myself that. I started rehearsing in my head how I would tell her, how I would explain everything. I have to be honest, but careful, calm. She has to understand I never wanted to hurt her. I even wrote little mental scripts, phrases I might use. It's not like normal cleaning. It's specialized, and I learned a lot, made some money, and I was scared you'd judge me. At work, I moved with the precision and speed I had honed over months, scrubbing floors, wiping counters, sanitizing every corner, all while my mind was somewhere else, imagining her reaction, the tears, the anger, the disappointment. I hated myself for feeling pride in this job, while also fearing its revelation. That I started paying more attention to her moods, the subtle way she watched me, the way her friends commented casually about office life. Every little thing felt like a test, a prelude to discovery. And every night, lying beside her, I felt both love and dread, knowing that the moment of truth was coming and that there was no way to escape it forever. That I knew I had to be ready for her questions, for her hurt, for the anger that would inevitably surface. And deep down, I realized something else, that admitting the truth, facing her disappointment, was the only way to stop suffocating under this lie. The thought terrified me, but it also gave me a tiny spark of resolve. I have to do this, I whispered to myself, staring at the ceiling. I love her too much to let fear ruin us. It happened one quiet evening, just the two of us at home. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, every beat echoing like a drum. She looked at me, eyes calm but sharp, and said, "I need to know the truth. No more hiding." I swallowed hard. The words I had rehearsed countless times seemed suddenly inadequate. I have to tell you something," I began, voice trembling. "It's about my work. The truth is, I've been cleaning, really specialized cleaning, and I didn't tell you because I was afraid. Afraid you'd think less of me." Her eyes widened, a mix of surprise and a flicker of hurt. "You've been hiding this all along?" she asked softly. I nodded, feeling my chest tighten. I thought it would ruin things between us. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you too much for that." There was silence for a moment, heavy and suffocating. I watched her face, trying to read every micro-expression. I saw confusion, disappointment, and slowly, understanding. "I get it," she said finally, her voice steady. "It's not about what job you do. I understand why you were scared, but I can't ever see this happening again. I need honesty. Always." Tears welled up in my eyes. Relief, guilt, and love all collided in a wave I couldn't stop. "I promise," I whispered. "No more lies. Ever." She reached for my hand, a simple touch that carried forgiveness and a chance to rebuild. In that moment, I realized something profound. It wasn't the job that mattered. It was trust, honesty, and the courage to face the truth. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a fragile, hopeful sense of peace. The next month was unbearable. We didn't speak. Not a word. I woke up every morning with a pit in my stomach, imagining her life without me, imagining the disappointment that lingered even when we weren't together. I checked my phone obsessively, hoping for a message, a sign, anything. I replayed every moment of our last conversation over and over in my head. Did I explain enough? Did she understand my fear? Did I ruin everything? The guilt was crushing. I walked through my apartment, touching objects, noticing the little things she had left behind. The scent of her perfume still faint in the air, and I missed her more than I could put into words. During this time, I started thinking deeply about myself, my pride, my fear, my insecurity. I realized how foolish I had been, how much the lie had cost us emotionally, and how easy it would have been to prevent all this if I'd just trusted her from the start. And then came the message I'd been waiting for. Can we talk? My heart nearly stopped. I stared at the screen, fingers trembling, wondering if this was the moment of forgiveness or finality. She reached out, not with anger, but with the possibility of understanding, a bridge I hadn't dared hope for. Did I? Typed back immediately, yes. I've been waiting for this. I'll be ready to talk, always. That day, I realized something crucial. Love can survive fear and mistakes, but only if honesty returns to the center. And I vowed to myself that, moving forward, I would never hide the truth from her again. The day we finally met to talk felt surreal. I arrived, heart hammering, palms sweaty, unsure if I'd be met with anger or silence. She opened the door, and instead of coldness, there was a calm firmness in her eyes. I've thought about everything, she began, and I understand why you did what you did. It wasn't about betrayal or cheating. I get that you were scared, but I need one thing from you. No more lies, ever. Honesty, always. I exhaled, relief washing over me like a tidal wave. I promise. No more lies. I've learned my lesson, and I'll never hide the truth from you again, I said, my voice shaking with emotion. She smiled faintly, reaching out for my hand. I still love you. I want us to move forward, but this has to be a turning point. I need to know I can trust you completely. Sitting across from her, holding her hand, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The fear, the anxiety, the guilt, all of it began to fade. I realized how lucky I was to have her understanding, how precious this second chance was. Thank you, I whispered. I love you more than anything, and I'll never take this for granted again. She nodded, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. After that conversation, I spent hours reflecting. Sitting alone, I thought about every decision I had made over the past months, every little lie, every moment of fear. I realized how ridiculous it had been to let pride and embarrassment control something as precious as love. I was an idiot, I muttered to myself, shaking my head. All this anxiety, all this guilt, and for what? Just to avoid admitting the truth about my work. I laughed bitterly, the sound echoing through my empty apartment. But alongside the regret, there was clarity. I understood that honesty isn't just about words. It's about trust, vulnerability, and the willingness to be truly seen, even in your most uncomfortable truths. And now, knowing that she valued me for who I am, not the job I do, I felt a surge of gratitude and love I hadn't fully realized before that I began thinking about the future, our future. I wanted to show her that I had truly learned, that I could be the man she deserved. And for the first time, I felt ready to take the next step. Commitment, planning, a life together without lies, without fear. I love her, and I'll never hide from her again, I whispered, smiling to myself. It's time to move forward, honestly, completely, and with everything I have. A few weeks later, things began to settle. Our conversations were easier, laughter returned to our home, and the tension that had haunted me for months started to fade. I realized that love had survived, stronger for the honesty and the courage it demanded. That I reflected on my mistakes, the lies I told, and the fear that nearly cost me everything. I let embarrassment control me. I admitted quietly to myself. But now I see what truly matters: trust, openness, and the person you love. We talked about the future, dreams, plans, and slowly, I felt ready for the next big step. I wanted to show her my commitment, my gratitude, my love, fully and without hesitation. That's when I decided it was time. I started looking at rings, imagining her smile when I would finally ask her to marry me. Asterisk sitting across from her one evening, holding her hand, I whispered, I love you, and I'll never hide from you again. I want us to build everything together, honestly, completely, and forever. She smiled, and I knew we had passed through the storm. Together, that it was a lesson I would never forget. Fear and pride can destroy, but love and honesty can rebuild even the most fragile bonds. And now, finally, I felt ready to step forward into a future we would create together.